My fiancée Rachel, an army major, and I were both reborn. When I heard the news, I died, my heart full of bitterness. Looking back, my last life was a complete joke. This time, I'm not going to be the punchline. I'm going to leave Rachel and walk my own path. I carefully tucked the acceptance letter into my pocket and headed home. The sky outside was so blue, the sun so bright. Everything was so beautiful. The joy of this new life was indescribable. To celebrate my rebirth, I bought groceries and went back to my place to make a special meal. I was in the kitchen prepping when I heard footsteps outside. Soon, the door was pushed open and Rachel walked in. She was carrying a large bag. As soon as she opened the door, she turned and called out warmly, "Come on in. From now on, think of this as your home." Following Rachel's friendly invitation, a slender Ethan and his brother Cody walked in. Seeing me busy in the kitchen, Ethan gave a shy smile. "Leo, I hope Cody and I won't be too much trouble for you and Rachel from now on." I stared at Ethan and Cody, completely surprised. In my previous life, Rachel didn't bring them home to live with us until 2 months later. Why so much earlier this time? Seeing my silence, Rachel frowned. "Ethan is talking to you. Why aren't you answering? You have no manners at all." I looked at the younger version of Rachel. Her face was beautiful beyond words. It was that face that made me love her devotedly for over 40 years, and let her waste 40 years of my life. The tone and expression she used with me were already so bossy. So she started hating me this early on? I must have been truly blind in my last life. I forced a slight smile. "It's not that I don't want to answer him. It's that I don't know how. This is your house. I'm just a guest here, not the host, same as Ethan. So there's no trouble for me to worry about." My words made Rachel's expression darken. She shot me a glare, then took Ethan and Cody upstairs to get them settled. I calmly went back to cooking. Half an hour later, Rachel brought the two brothers downstairs. She glanced at the dishes I had already placed on the table. "Is dinner ready? So let's eat." Ethan's 8-year-old brother, Cody, darted into the kitchen like a little monkey. He quickly made himself at home, dished out 3 bowls of rice, and brought them to the table, calling out enthusiastically, "Rachel, time to eat." Rachel politely pulled out a chair for Ethan. She didn't look at me once as the 3 of them sat down together, all smiles. Ethan put a piece of meat in Rachel's bowl, and she returned the favor, giving meat to both him and his brother. Completely ignoring me as I stood to the side, they prepared to dig in. I watched coldly as Cody stuffed a huge mouthful of meat into his mouth. Cody and Ethan's parents had passed away, so they lived with their aunt and uncle. Word was their relatives weren't kind and had made their lives miserable. So meat was a rare luxury. The sight of the big platter of meat on the table made Cody's eyes light up, and he was practically drooling. He quickly devoured the meat in his bowl and reached for more from the platter. But just as his chopsticks touched the plate, Cody's eyes went wide. His face turned beet red as he spat out the meat in his mouth. Rachel and Ethan weren't as dramatic, but both of them were flushed, their mouths hanging open, panting like dogs. It was a pathetic sight. Rachel covered her mouth and rushed into the kitchen to find water. Ethan was gasping for air while trying to comfort Cody, who now had tears and snot streaming down his face. It was both ridiculous and disgusting. After about 10 minutes of chaos, Rachel and the brothers finally calmed down. Rachel glared at me, her face grim. "Leo, why did you put so many hot peppers in the meat? We don't eat spicy food. You did this on purpose, didn't you?" Ethan chimed in, accusing me. "Leo, are you unhappy that Cody and I moved in? If so, to avoid causing problems between you and Rachel, Cody and I will leave." As he spoke, Ethan put on an expression of ultimate victimhood, his eyes turning red as he grabbed Cody and pretended to leave. There was no way Rachel was letting him go. She immediately stopped him. I just watched the 3 of them put on their little show, my face a mask of indifference. Seeing me just standing there without a reaction, Rachel got furious. She yelled at me, "Leo, what is wrong with you? Get over here and apologize to Ethan and Cody right now." I slowly replied, "Apologize for what? What did I do wrong? You deliberately cooked the food so spicy to mess with Ethan and Cody. Don't you think you should apologize for that? Rachel, that's ridiculous. Did you ever tell me that Ethan and Cody were moving in? No, right? So why would I have any reason to target them? Besides, I love spicy food. I can't eat a meal without it. Who am I bothering by cooking food I like for myself? Is it my fault you can't handle the heat? You have hands and feet. If you want something different, cook it yourself. Anyone with a brain knows that. My retort left Rachel speechless. She hadn't consulted me at all about bringing Ethan and Cody home. She just assumed I would automatically wait on them hand and foot like their personal servant. But I wasn't the same Leo from my past life, the one who revolved entirely around her. What she liked to eat was none of my business. Unable to find a comeback, Rachel was fuming. Ethan stepped in, playing the peacemaker. Leo, you didn't know, so it's not your fault. Just be more careful next time. So they still expect me to be their maid and take care of their every need? I let out a cold laugh. Let me make one thing clear. If you want to eat, you cook it yourself. I'm not anyone's butler or servant. I'm not in the habit of taking care of strangers. My bluntness wiped the smile off Ethan's face. Rachel, feeling like she'd lost face, angrily took Ethan and Cody out to eat. I scraped all the food that Rachel and the two brothers had touched into the trash can. Then I went back to the kitchen and cooked a new meal for myself. That's right. I did it on purpose. I knew Rachel, Ethan, and Cody couldn't handle spicy food. So I deliberately made the dish incredibly hot, salty, and numbing to welcome them. I didn't come back in this life to be a doormat. Rachel and Ethan would soon find out that I'm not to be messed with. After enjoying a delicious, fiery meal, I started thinking about my next steps. Since I was reborn, there was no way I would live the same life as before. I had to go to college, which meant my engagement to Rachel had to be called off. I needed to go to Rachel's parents and break things off. The Vances lived over 100 miles away from where we were staying. I decided to buy a bus ticket for the next day and go back to set things straight. The bus station was a bit of a walk from our place. After buying the ticket, I thought I should bring a gift for Mr. and Mrs. Vance, so I went to the mall. I never expected to run into Rachel, Ethan, and Cody there. They were picking out bed sheets. The sales clerk, seeing that Rachel and Ethan were around the same age and looked so good together, assumed they were shopping for their wedding. She enthusiastically pushed a set of bright red sheets with a traditional wedding design. Ethan blushed slightly but didn't correct her. Rachel didn't deny it either. In the end, Ethan chose a blue set of sheets, and Rachel paid for it. Rachel didn't see me. She then bought some candy for Cody. Cody was thrilled. You're the best, Rachel. Why is someone as amazing as you with a jerk like Leo? He doesn't deserve you at all. Rachel didn't even try to stop Cody from attacking me, letting him badmouth me freely. Just then, Ethan, who was browsing local souvenirs, spotted me and stopped his brother. Don't talk nonsense. Leo's actually a pretty good guy. He and Rachel look good together. Good together? What are you talking about? Rachel is beautiful and kind. She even bought me candy. But Leo, you can just tell he's a bad person. He deliberately tried to mess with me and my brother. Rachel cleared her throat. What happened at lunch was Leo's fault. I apologize on his behalf. I'll talk to him when we get back. It won't happen again. It's fine. It wasn't a big deal, Ethan said, his eyes glancing in my direction before adding, I'm just curious. Rachel, how did you and he get together? How else? An arranged marriage set up by our parents when we were kids. Rachel sighed, a look of helplessness on her face. Wow, an arranged marriage? I thought you two were together because you fell in love. No, Leo and I have nothing in common. If I were choosing for myself, I wouldn't pick someone with his personality. Hearing them talk about me like that, I wasn't even angry. I just laughed to myself. Rachel was right. Our engagement was arranged by our parents. My father and her father, Mr. Vance, were army buddies, as close as brothers. My mother and her mother, Mrs. Vance, were also friends. When they got married, they made a pact. If they had a boy and a girl, the kids would be married. If they had two boys, they'd be like brothers, two girls, like sisters. So, Rachel and I were betrothed from the day we were born. My parents and hers exchanged engagement tokens. My family gave Rachel a jade pendant, and her family gave me an expensive wristwatch. If I was going to break off the engagement, I had to return the watch in person, and I had to get my family's jade pendant back. Also, if I was going to make a clean break from Rachel, I needed to think about moving out of her house. My father died heroically on a mission, and my mother, consumed by grief, followed him a few months later. I became an orphan, and Mr. and Mrs. Vance took me in and raised me. I was incredibly grateful for their care. But in all the years I lived with them, I never took a dime of their money. As the child of a fallen soldier, I received survivor benefits. In other words, I had my own money. After leaving Rachel, I wouldn't have to worry about my finances at all. Right now, the first thing I had to do was call off the engagement. I already had the bus ticket. First thing tomorrow, I'd go back and talk to Mr. and Mrs. Vance about ending things. Rachel, in my last life, I brought all my suffering on myself. This time, I'll be the one to let go. That evening, I ate some dumplings out and didn't get back to the house until late. From a distance, I could hear laughter and happy voices. When I opened the door, I saw Rachel and Ethan in the kitchen, cooking together. They stood side by side, smiling. Every now and then, Ethan would nudge Rachel with his elbow, making her laugh. Rachel would look back at him with a gentle smile. In my last life and this one, I had never once seen Rachel cook. She was always waited on hand and foot. Even when I was sick with a stomachache, she wouldn't lift a finger to make a meal. So this is the difference between love and not loving someone, huh? So obvious. Hearing me close the door, they both turned. Rachel instinctively moved a little away from Ethan. "You're back. Dinner's almost ready. Go wash your hands and get ready to eat." I ignored her, a smirk playing on my lips as I carried my bag of souvenirs to my room. I pushed open the door and was stunned by the mess inside. My clothes and blanket were thrown carelessly on the floor. There were footprints on the blanket and stains all over the clothes. The nightstand had been ransacked. Books and pens were scattered everywhere. But what angered me the most was that the few photos I had of my parents were torn and thrown on the ground. The culprit, Cody, was grinning at me, a defiant and careless look on his face that sent a wave of fury through me. "Who let you in my room? Is this your room? You're shameless. This is clearly Rachel's house. You're just a freeloader and she can't stand you." As Cody spoke, he made a move to rip the photo of my parents he was holding. I shouted, "Put it down. Put it down right now." Cody paid me no mind and tore another gash in the photo. Enraged, I lunged forward. "Give it to me. I'm warning you. Don't touch my pictures." Cody made a face at me and let out a blood-curdling scream. The sound was piercing. "He's hitting me. Leo's hitting me. It hurts so much." As he yelled, he threw himself at me, tearing and biting. For such a small kid, he was surprisingly strong. I never expected him to go berserk like that. He bit my hand, drawing blood. Wincing in pain, I shoved him away hard. Cody fell backward with a heavy thud. His screams grew even louder. Hearing Cody's cries, Rachel and Ethan rushed upstairs. Seeing Cody on the floor, wailing, Rachel was furious. "What did you do? Leo, why would you do this to Cody? He's just a child." Ethan rushed over to help Cody up. The boy's mouth was full of blood as he cried, "My tooth." Leo knocked my tooth out. Seeing Cody spitting blood, Rachel was frantic and started screaming at me. She called me cruel and heartless for attacking a child. I ignored her yelling, simply picking up the torn photos of my parents and gently wiping them clean. Ethan held Cody, his eyes red and his voice choked with emotion. "He's the only brother I have left. He's so young and you knocked his tooth out. Leo, how could you be so vicious? If you didn't want us here, you could have just said so. Did you really have to attack an 8-year-old boy?" Rachel, while comforting Ethan, looked at me with disgust. "Leo, I never thought you were this kind of person. You've disappointed me so much. I'm telling you, you have to apologize to Cody and beg for his forgiveness, or else you'll what?" I held up my bleeding hand and looked at Rachel. "Are you blind? Or is your heart blind? Can't you see what's been done to my room?" Seeing my bloody hand, Rachel froze. "Well, Cody's just a kid. It's in their nature to be rowdy. You can clean up the mess. I laughed coldly. Then tell me, what about this? What am I supposed to do about the only photos I have left of my parents? She was still defending Cody. Well, he didn't do it on purpose. Cody doesn't know any better. He just accidentally tore it. That's no reason to attack him. Rachel, you don't actually believe I knocked his tooth out, do you? If that's what you think, let's go to the hospital right now and get him checked out. We'll see if I really knocked his tooth out and made him spit blood, or if his so-called spitting blood is just another one of his tricks. Now that I'd called their bluff, both Cody and Ethan went quiet. Rachel fell silent too. She grew up with me, she knew what kind of person I was. The room was quiet. I looked coldly at Cody and Ethan. Let's go. We're going to the hospital to get those injuries looked at. My insistence on going to the hospital made Ethan panic. That's not necessary. We don't need your apology. Let's just drop it. Drop it? You mean your brother gets to bite me for free and we just drop it? If I bit you, would you just drop it? Not to mention my room is a complete disaster. If something's missing, who am I supposed to blame? And I'm telling you, I had cash in this room. Ethan trembled with rage. You're accusing us of being thieves? Leo, how can you bully us like this? The sight of Ethan's tear-filled eyes sent Rachel's sympathy into overdrive. She frowned at me. Leo, that's enough. You're being way too aggressive. I sneered, then yanked open Cody's jacket and pulled a few bills from his pocket. What's this? Don't tell me this is your money. Do you look like you have this kind of cash? Rachel, Ethan, and Cody were all dumbfounded when I pulled out the money. The brothers had been crying poor, claiming they were starving. Where would they get this much money? It was obvious they had stolen it from me. Being exposed as a thief in front of Rachel was a huge loss of face for Ethan. He slapped Cody hard across the face. Who told you to steal? Who told you to be a delinquent? Haven't I taught you? We would rather starve to death than take a single penny from anyone. What high morals! You won't take a penny, but a few dozen bucks is fine. You're a great role model for your brother, Ethan. My sarcasm left Ethan utterly humiliated. He scooped up Cody and left, sobbing dramatically. Rachel couldn't bear it and ran after them. I cleaned up my trashed room and lay down on the bed, still fully clothed. Just a little longer. As soon as I break the engagement, I'm moving out. It was the middle of the night before Rachel managed to coax the brothers back. She came and knocked on my door. Leo, I brought you some antiseptic. Let me clean your wound. She had been out chasing after them for 4 or 5 hours. If my wound was going to get infected, it would have happened by now. I ignored her and pulled the covers over my head. She waited a moment, then knocked again. I know you're not asleep. Can we talk? I knew what she wanted to talk about. She was just going to ask me to be the bigger person and make excuses for the brothers. After living through one lifetime of this, how could I fall for it again? After all, I knew exactly what kind of people those two were. In my past life, after Rachel and I got married, those two brothers moved right in. Ethan went to college in DC, while Cody stayed with us. I looked after him like he was my own little brother. They say everyone has a heart, and I thought if I was good to Cody, he would be good to me in return. But that's not what happened. Cody was lazy and a pathological liar. Whenever Rachel came home from the base or Ethan came back from college, he would complain and slander me. He told them I abused him, starved him, refused to do his laundry, and hit him all the time. In my last life, I thought he was just a kid who didn't know any better. It took another lifetime to understand. Some people are just born rotten to the core. The brothers' wickedness was in their bones. I didn't want to provoke them or get revenge. But that didn't mean I would just take their abuse. If the brothers behaved themselves, I'd break off the engagement, leave, and let Ethan and Rachel have their happy ending. If they didn't, then they shouldn't blame me. I had put up with it for a lifetime. I wouldn't put up with it again. If anyone tried to scheme against me, I would pay them back 1,000 times over. The next morning, the brothers were gone. Rachel had bought breakfast and was trying to coax me to sit down and eat. I sat down silently and took a bite of a bun. Rachel kept her eyes on me. Seeing my cold attitude and how I wasn't initiating conversation, She spoke first. Does your hand still hurt? I scoffed. Why don't you let someone bite you and find out? My completely different attitude was starting to get to her. Look, Leo, I just feel sorry for Ethan and his brother. They have no family and were abused by their aunt and uncle. I couldn't just stand by, so I wanted to help them. There are plenty of people who need help. Why them and not someone else? My question left Rachel stumped. Her face darkened. She forced herself to hold back her anger and was silent for a moment before saying, "If you're worried about me, we can go get married now." Her words made me look up at her. Rachel, are you sure you want to marry me? No regrets? My question stunned her. After a long pause, she said, "We've been engaged since we were children, so it's because we were engaged as kids that you feel you have to marry me." I cut her off. Falling in love freely is the modern way. Our so-called engagement is an old-fashioned relic. You don't have to force yourself to keep that promise. I put it so bluntly, thinking she would get the hint and suggest we call it off. Then we could just agree and inform her parents. But for some reason, Rachel didn't go along with it. Instead, she said very seriously, "Leo, you are my husband. That will never change. Not in this lifetime." Her words made me want to laugh. She had already moved her lover and his brother into our home. How could she still lie to my face like that? It was no wonder I was so easily deceived in my past life. I was just that stupid, that foolish, unable to see the situation for what it was. I didn't understand why Rachel still wanted to marry me. Just the thought of her busy taking wedding photos with Ethan while I was on my deathbed made my blood boil with hatred. If she wanted to keep up the act, let her. I wasn't going to waste my time with her anymore. I changed the subject. I'm planning to go back and see Mr. and Mrs. Vance. Oh, I've been a bit busy lately, so I don't have time to go with you. I don't need you to come. I've already bought my ticket. I'm leaving today. Rachel stared at me, stunned. After a moment, she said, "I'll drive you to the station." In the end, Rachel didn't take me to the station. A tearful call from Ethan pulled her away. I went to the bus station without any emotion. A few hours later, I was sitting in the Vances living room with the gifts I'd bought. When I told them I wanted to end my relationship with Rachel, both Mr. and Mrs. Vance were shocked. "Why? Did Rachel do something to you?" "No, it's just that I don't want to get married so soon. I want to go to college. I want to learn, serve my country, and be a useful person like my dad was." Mr. and Mrs. Vance exchanged a look. They didn't believe me. They weren't entirely ignorant of what Rachel had been up to. Mr. Vance said angrily, "Is it because of that boy, Ethan? Don't worry, Leo. You're the son-in-law we've chosen. Only you will ever be part of our family." "No, Mr. Vance, it's just me. I'm so sorry, but I can't fulfill my engagement to Rachel. Please just agree to this." Seeing my determination, Mr. and Mrs. Vance had no choice but to agree to break the engagement. I took out the watch their family had given mine and returned it. Mrs. Vance gave me back my family's jade pendant. Mr. and Mrs. Vance told me they would always have my back. I was very grateful to them. I figured in my last life, Rachel must have only agreed to marry me because her parents pressured her. Thankfully, I had set things right so that wouldn't happen again. With the engagement officially broken, I stayed at the Vance's house for another week before heading back. The return bus was delayed, and I didn't get back to the house until 11 at night. The house was dark. Thinking I should be as quiet as possible to not disturb anyone, I tiptoed in and headed upstairs to my room. But as I approached my door, I heard strange noises coming from inside. It was clearly a man's moans. Was the place haunted? Why would a man be moaning in my room? I threw open the door and flicked on the light. The scene inside burned into my eyes. On my bed, Ethan and Rachel were wrapped in a passionate embrace. The sound of the door and the sudden bright light startled Rachel, who shot up. She saw me standing in the doorway, her eyes wide. "Leo? You?" Before she could finish, she glanced at Ethan. Terrified, Rachel shoved Ethan away. Caught off guard, he tumbled off the bed and onto the floor. Rachel didn't even spare him a glance, instead firing questions at him. "What is going on? What are you doing in Leo's room?" I watched them coldly. "Shouldn't you be asking yourselves that? If you're gonna do that kind of thing, do it in your own room. Why come to mine? Is it more exciting this way? As my words fell, Ethan, still on the floor, choked out. It's not like that. It's not like that. Rachel also tried to explain frantically, Leo, it's not what you think. Cody spilled water on the bedding in my room, so it was wet. Couldn't sleep there. I thought you were out of town, so I came to sleep in your room. I was half asleep and thought I was dreaming. Is that so? Then how did he end up in my room? Don't tell me your brother also wet the bed in his room, so he had nowhere else to go and had to crash here? Seeing my sarcastic smile, Ethan covered his face. I got up in the night and went into the wrong room. I didn't believe his explanation for a second, and I wondered if Rachel did. I looked at the two of them, practically undressed, and chuckled. Since it's already come to this, why don't you two just go get married? These two were so in love. My blessing was like a wish granted. I thought Rachel would take the opportunity and agree, but she surprised me once again. This was just a misunderstanding. We didn't do anything. Leo, believe me, I will never marry anyone but you. You are my one and only husband. Ethan's face had lit up with joy when he heard my suggestion, but upon hearing Rachel's rejection, it turned deathly pale. You can't insult me like this. I just walked into the wrong room. I wanted to see if this shameless man would actually have the guts to do himself in. Of course, Ethan wasn't about to die. He thought I would stop him, or at the very least, Rachel would. But Rachel didn't move from the bed, and I was just watching the show. Ethan's dramatic exit performance couldn't go on. Just as he was stuck, not knowing whether to advance or retreat, Cody appeared. He clung to Ethan, who was pretending to leave, and the two brothers sobbed like they were at a funeral. I watched this scene coldly. If I had known Ethan and Rachel were going to get it on, I wouldn't have come back today. I should have waited another 2 days. Damn it. What terrible timing. After that incident, Ethan got sick. He stayed in bed, refusing to get up. He wouldn't go to the hospital, he just lay there in his room. I didn't know what scheme he was plotting, but it had nothing to do with me. I had already broken off my engagement to Rachel and had no ties to her. It wasn't appropriate for me to live here anymore. I decided to pack my things and move out. As I was packing in my room, I heard Cody downstairs, crying to Rachel. My brother won't eat. He says to just let him die. What should I do, Rachel? He's the only family I have. Nothing can happen to him or I won't be able to go on. Rachel, naturally worried about her sweetheart, followed Cody to the next room to talk to him. A moment later, I heard Ethan's hoarse sobs from the other room. How am I supposed to live? I can't go on. Just let me die. Rachel's attempts to console him didn't work instead. He started making a scene again. I listened to the drama while I packed. I don't know what Rachel said to him. The crying and yelling finally stopped. I figured Rachel must have promised to marry him. Now that he got what he wanted, there was no need to pretend to want to die. I continued packing my things when Rachel came knocking on my door. I asked coldly, "What is it?" "Leo, let's talk." "Talk about what?" I looked at her sarcastically. Rachel met my gaze and then looked away, flustered. "Leo, don't look at me like that. Nothing happened between me and Ethan. You were in the same bed. You call that nothing? We didn't go all the way. Leo, this wasn't our fault." "So it was my fault?" I sneered. "Of course it wasn't your fault either. I just wanted to tell you that I never intended to betray you. What happened last night was just an accident, and I'm glad you came back." Right, I admit I interrupted you. It's all my fault." "Leo, what are you talking about? It's not like that between me and Ethan." "Then what is it like? Lying in bed together in the dark? Were you two just chatting about the future? You didn't need to take your clothes off for that." My comeback made Rachel's face flush. I told you I thought I was dreaming, didn't I? I thought it was you, so I let myself go." I spat on the floor. "Don't disgust me." Rachel looked as if she had been deeply insulted. "Everything I'm saying is true. If I'm telling a single lie, may I be struck by lightning." Her oath meant nothing to me. I didn't believe in divine punishment. If oaths worked, I wouldn't have been deceived by her in my last life. And in my last life, The cheating, unfaithful Rachel wouldn't have ended up so successful, outliving me to marry the man of her dreams, Ethan. I was fed up with her trying to explain herself. I'm not interested in your relationship with him, so you don't need to explain it to me. You're my fiancé. If you're not interested, who would be? Ha! I shot her a cold laugh, not wanting to get dragged into this any further. So, what did you want to talk to me about? Just get to the point. Well, Ethan is innocent. He feels so guilty about last night that he just wants to die. So, is he dead yet? I asked coldly. Rachel stared at me, stunned. After a moment, she stammered, Leo, how can you be so cold-blooded? Cold-blooded? Someone who truly wants to die doesn't go around announcing it to everyone. Only someone putting on a show would pull a stunt like that. My words left Rachel speechless. She stared at me for a long time. Leo, you seem like a different person. Do I? Or is it you who's changed? I haven't. I feel the same way about you as I always have. I laughed coldly again. Seeing that my face no longer showed adoration, but only impatience, Rachel must have realized that arguing was pointless, so she got straight to the point. Ethan is so ashamed he just wants to die. Took me a long time to talk him out of it. He says he's too embarrassed to stay here and wants to leave. But he's just a boy. Where can he go with his little brother? I feel sorry for him, so I thought of a compromise. I didn't say a word, just stared at her. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Rachel paused for a moment before continuing. You and I are getting married soon, and you won't be going to college after that anyway. Why don't you give your college spot to Ethan? Hearing her words, I let out a soft laugh. Is this your idea? Or did Ethan suggest it? It's my idea. Is that so? And why should I agree to that? I looked at her coldly and shot back. And what gives you the right to make decisions for me? Who do you think you are? I'm not. Aren't we engaged? Your business is my business. Forget that we aren't even married yet. Even if we were, you don't get to make my decisions for me. You're the one who made the mistake. Why should I be the one to pay for it? Besides, who knows if it was even your mistake? I reminded her, coldly and deliberately. Maybe this was a plan you two cooked up together, just to screw me over, wasn't it? Rachel jumped up in anger. How can you say that about me? I'm your fiancé. Not after we break the engagement, you're not. Rachel was shocked by my casual tone. What do you mean? You want to break off the engagement with me? Why? Why? You don't know? You brought another man into our home to take care of him, and you even slept in the same bed with him. Since you two are so in love, just be together. I'll step aside and let you have your happiness. Rachel vehemently denied her relationship with Ethan. What nonsense are you talking about? It's not what you think between us. I told you my husband can only be you, no one else. I watched Rachel like she was a clown in a circus. Her face was red with anger. Leo, you used to listen to me so well. Whatever I said, you did. Why won't you think of me this time? She had the nerve to bring up the past. She knew how much I loved her, and she still hurt me so shamelessly. How could she be so despicable? The old me was stupid, hopelessly so. The new me doesn't want to be that stupid anymore. I didn't want to listen to her ramble on. Your idea of me giving my college spot to Ethan is off the table. Tell him to forget it. What a piece of work. If you want to go to college, earn your way in. Scheming for someone else's spot. You'd think he'd have the decency to be ashamed. I raised my voice when I said that last part. I was sure Ethan and Cody were eavesdropping next door. It was hilarious. They screw up, and they want me to compensate them by giving them my college spot? Who gave them the nerve? I pushed Rachel out of the room and continued packing. Suddenly, something occurred to me. Rachel and Ethan seemed so practiced in this idea of him taking my place. Could it be that, in my past life, Ethan went to college by secretly taking my spot after I gave up my chance to marry Rachel? Why would someone who had nothing to do with me even have such an idea? Was it that Rachel was in on it with him? Had they been plotting to get my college spot all along? The thought sent a chill down my spine. If that was true, then my last life was an even bigger tragedy than I thought. I had to get out of here immediately and never have anything to do with them again. I grabbed my packed bags to leave, but Rachel blocked my way. She wouldn't let me move out. She stood firmly in the doorway. Leo, where are you going? I'm moving out. I won't let you. You don't get to decide anymore. I'm moving out. Leo, is this because of Ethan? I swear, there's nothing between us. I know you've been wronged. I'll find a place for Ethan to move to, and I'll cut off all contact with him. Her words surprised me. What was she trying to do? Was a single college spot really worth all this effort? I couldn't figure her out, but I was determined to leave. Rachel threatened me. I'm your fiancé and everyone knows it. If you move out, who would dare take you in? This is interfering with a military marriage. Do you know you could go to jail for that? Rachel was right. She was a major now, and everyone knew about us. If I made a scene, no one would dare to help me. I swallowed my anger and went back into the room. Just a little longer. In about 10 days, I'd be off to college, and then I'd never come back. Not being able to move out as planned left me feeling uneasy. For some reason, a terrible suspicion crossed my mind. If that damn couple had been eyeing my college spot all along, then they would stop at nothing to get it. Keeping me here was just part of their plan. I had to be on my guard and prepare myself. While I was secretly getting ready, Rachel left on a mission. With Rachel gone, Ethan came to negotiate with me directly. Now that the cards were on the table, Ethan dropped the act. He got straight to the point. Leo, you know what happened between me and Rachel that day. If you don't want her reputation ruined, you'd better give me your college spot. I scoffed. You're speaking too quietly. Say it louder. I'm not kidding. This is serious. You know how big the fallout from this would be. If I spread the word that Rachel is a shameless woman, her life will be over. You love her so much, are you really willing to watch her be branded a tramp? I looked at Ethan with a half smile. Just a reminder, don't get yourself into trouble. The police aren't Rachel. They won't be charmed by you or fall for your stupid tricks. Leo, are you sure you want to go head to head with me like this? My words hit a nerve, and Ethan's face flushed. He softened his tone. I'm not trying to steal Rachel from you. I'll be honest, she likes me. All I have to do is beckon, and she'll dump you for me. Then go ahead and beckon her. Why are you talking to me? I don't like you. No, why are you so difficult to talk to? I already told you I won't compete with you for Rachel. I'm not asking for much. You and Rachel are getting married soon, and you won't be going to college anyway. What's the big deal with giving the spot to me? It's a win-win situation. If you think marrying Rachel is so great, then you marry her. Why are you bugging me? I'm not your parent, I'm not going to spoil you. If you want my college spot, forget it. My firm refusal left Ethan with no other options, and he left in a huff. I knew they wouldn't give up that easily. As long as those two brothers lived under the same roof with me, knowing their nature, I remained on high alert, worried they would pull something shady. I sewed my college acceptance letter into the lining of my clothes and hid my money well. I would not give them or Rachel any opportunity to break me. Time flew by, and Rachel returned from her mission. She had found a new place for Ethan, but he stubbornly refused to move out. He kept pretending to be sick, threatening to die if he had to leave. I guess it's true what they say. It's easier to invite the devil in than to ask him to leave. Or maybe this was all just a show to confuse me. Whatever the case, it had nothing to do with me. My departure date was getting closer. Rachel was constantly being called over by Ethan to talk about who knows what. Every time she came back from talking with him, her face was grim. I could tell she was under a lot of pressure, probably facing some kind of trouble. I figured their biggest problem right now was trying to get my college spot. I decided to wait and see what they would do. Seeing how quiet I was, Rachel probably thought I had given up on leaving. Her attitude toward me suddenly changed. Rachel started being extra nice to me. She would buy me my favorite sweets, ask me to go for walks and chats, and even offered to take me to the movies. In the past, these were things I would have begged for, but now I refused them all. Who knew what kind of trap Rachel would set for me just for Ethan's sake? I wouldn't be fooled so easily. While I remained unmovable, Ethan's sickness got him sent to the hospital several times, with Rachel taking him each time. He would make a huge scene, but the doctors could never find anything wrong with him, so he'd come back after all the fuss. I could see Rachel's frustration. She hadn't succeeded in tricking me out of the college spot for her beloved man. She was getting desperate. I knew both Rachel and Ethan were out of options. I was sure they were plotting something new to trap me. Sure enough, Rachel came to me to vent. He won't move out. What do we do now? Let him rot, obviously. What does this have to do with me? If I had known it would be like this, I never should have felt sorry for him. Rachel sighed, still not giving up. How about this, Leo? Just give him the college spot. That way he'll probably move out. So she was still after my college spot. After all this, I couldn't refuse again. Refusing again might lead to trouble, and right now all I wanted was a smooth exit. I didn't have the energy to deal with them. I relented. Let me think about it. Seeing me give in, Rachel's brow relaxed. She took my hand and promised emotionally, Leo, I'll be good to you. Don't worry. I'll be good to you for the rest of our lives. You can just stay home and raise the kids, and I'll support you forever. Her hand on mine made me sick to my stomach. Being good to me meant turning me into a workhorse and a nanny? Being good to me meant rushing to marry Ethan before I was even cold in my grave? I saw Rachel's true colors once again. She was just as shameless and despicable as Ethan. I knew I couldn't win against them. I didn't want to get tangled up with this trashy couple anymore. Getting bitten by a rabid dog is a lot of trouble, and you can't just bite it back. I decided to leave early. To keep Rachel calm, I gave her a firm answer. After we get married, I'll give the spot to Ethan. Rachel thought I was using this to force her to marry me, and she agreed to move the wedding up. I watched her busy preparations with cold eyes. I knew the wedding would never happen. After all, in my last life, Rachel took a mission during this time and postponed the wedding. If things went as expected, the same would happen this time. 2 more days passed, and Rachel left on another mission. Before she left, she made a point to talk to me. Leo, you're the one I love. I've already submitted the marriage application. To prove it, she even showed me the application form. Don't cause any trouble for me. Just wait patiently at home. When I get back from my mission, we'll get married. I feigned a look of pleasant surprise and agreed. Let me turn in the application. You just focus on your mission. Rachel, thinking I didn't trust her and wanted to turn it in myself, readily handed me the form. Of course, I wasn't going to turn it in. As soon as I was out the door, I tore it to shreds and threw it in a gutter. After Rachel left, I hurried to the station and bought a train ticket. When I got back, Ethan looked at me with a sneer. So when are you going to give me that college spot? I sneered back. What's the rush? Ethan said hatefully, how can I not be in a rush? School is about to start. I need to get my documents in order, handle the paperwork, and a bunch of other things. I'm afraid I won't have enough time. How about you just give it to me now? In your dreams. I refused him. Just wait. When Rachel gets back from her mission, I'll give it to you. Ethan was not a patient person. His anxiety was palpable. He was practically burning with it. That night, I woke up with a stomachache and had to use the bathroom. As I passed the brothers' room, I saw their light was still on. What were they planning so late at night? As the saying goes, you can't be too careful. I had no intention of hurting anyone, but I was worried about being hurt. So I crept closer and listened at the wall. And I heard something truly shocking. Ethan was angrily scolding Cody. Didn't you say he would give me the spot without a fight? Why isn't anything going according to your plan? How should I know? In the last life, he gave up college to marry Rachel, and she gave you the spot without any effort. This time, he's completely unmovable. It's like he's possessed. A jolt went through me. Cody was reborn too? Ethan was silent for a moment. Have you noticed that Leo has changed a lot? Cody replied, I've noticed. In our last life, he was like a dutiful old nanny, always trying to please us and taking care of our every need. He did whatever Rachel said. But this time, he couldn't care less about us and is cold to Rachel too. At that, Ethan's voice shot up. Don't you think he might have been reborn too? Could he be? Cody asked. It must be. There's no other way to explain Leo's change. So what do we do now? If Leo was reborn, he must remember what happened last time. He definitely won't let it go, which means it'll be almost impossible for me to get his college spot. Ethan lowered his voice. speaking with venom. We have to find a way to force him to give me the spot. His voice was full of malice and determination. A shiver ran down my spine, and I silently returned to my room. Couldn't sleep that night. Just in case, it was better for me to leave as soon as possible. There's no time like the present. I decided to leave tomorrow. The next morning, my eyelid wouldn't stop twitching. They say a twitch in the left eye means money, and in the right, disaster. It was my right eye that was twitching. I had a bad feeling something was about to happen. To prevent any foul play, I made a big show of calling over the neighbors from the courtyard to help me pack. I asked Mr. Davis, Mr. Carter, Mike, and a couple of other guys from the block to help me move my things. Ethan and Cody never dreamed I would pull a move like this. When they saw 5 or 6 people suddenly flood the house to help me move my stuff, Ethan was dumbfounded. What's going on? Why are you moving things? Who are you? What's it to you? Mr. Davis, one of the neighbors I'd called, shot back. I'm just worried about Leo. Worried? Aren't you just hoping he'd leave? A single man shamelessly living in his fiancée's house. Anyone can see what you're up to. One of the older men spoke bluntly, without holding back. Ethan's face turned livid, but he couldn't utter a single word in his defense. As they loaded the last of my things onto the truck, I saw the restrained fury in the brothers' eyes. I knew they couldn't hold back any longer. Their final, desperate plan was about to unfold. All my luggage was already out. I was about to get in the truck and leave. From upstairs, Cody's voice called out, "Leo, you left something behind. It's the photos of your parents. I found them under the bed. I treasured anything related to my parents, and they knew my weakness. They knew I would never abandon my parents' photos. I would definitely go upstairs to get them. I knew a storm was waiting for me up there. Since they were so impatient, I decided to play along and give them what they wanted. I called back, 'I'm coming to get it.' Upstairs, Ethan and Cody both had nervous expressions. 'Bro, is he gonna come get it?' Cody asked in a worried whisper. 'He has to. I heard he's always been super careful with his parents' things. Treats them like treasure. The other day when you tore his photos, he got so mad. He won't leave them behind. Then let's get ready. As soon as he comes upstairs, we make our move. Just be a little gentle when you push me. Okay? Don't actually cripple me. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing.' As they were talking, they heard hurried footsteps from below. 'He's really coming.' The brothers exchanged a triumphant glance, their eyes fixed on the top of the stairs. The footsteps lingered at the base of the stairs, but no one came up. Then, Leo's voice called out, 'I'm not coming up. Just throw it down to me.' If he didn't come up, how could they execute their plan? Hearing this, both Ethan and Cody panicked. Cody raised his voice, 'I'll wait for you at the top of the stairs. Hurry up and get it.' The person below hesitated. They must be suspicious. Ethan was getting anxious. Time was running out. If Leo figured out it was a trap, he definitely wouldn't come up, and their plan would fail. No, he had to act fast. As he was thinking, he saw a head appear from below. Ethan didn't get a clear look, only seeing someone in a blue shirt. Leo was wearing a blue shirt today. It had to be him. With that confirmation, Ethan shoved Cody hard down the stairs. He shouted, 'Leo, what are you doing? Why did you push my brother? Help! Someone help! My brother was pushed down the stairs by Leo. Somebody save him!' Ethan's cries for help were met with Cody's horrific scream. Pushed from the top of the stairs by his own brother, he landed with a sickening thud. Down below, there was a steel rebar rod used for hanging clothes. As Cody fell, the rod pierced straight through his upper thigh. Blood sprayed everywhere. His screams were inhuman. Hearing the screams and cries for help, everyone outside rushed in. From the second floor, Ethan was frantically running down, shouting as he ran, 'Leo, you heartless monster. If anything happens to my brother, I'll never forgive you.' He finished his sentence just as he reached the bottom of the stairs. The scene before him left him stunned. 'Cody! Cody!' He stared at his brother, impaled on the rod, unable to speak. Cody had already passed out from the pain, blood pooling around him. Ethan steeled himself and continued to scream, Leo did this. Everyone, be my witness. A cold laugh came from the doorway. What did I do? Ethan looked up, his eyes wide with shock. Leo was standing at the entrance. He hadn't even come inside, which meant the person who had appeared at the bottom of the stairs wasn't Leo at all. He turned his head and saw Mike, one of the neighbors, standing nearby, wearing Leo's shirt, trembling in shock. Ah! Ethan let out a piercing, desperate scream. When Cody was taken to the hospital, he was barely breathing. The rebar had gone straight through his thigh, directly damaging his internal organs. The doctors said his organs were severely damaged. It took them a full day and night to stabilize him. He was still on a ventilator, and it was uncertain if he would even live. Ethan collapsed. At first, he tried to frame me, but I had more than enough witnesses and evidence to prove I had never even entered the house. His plan had failed. Cody was unconscious, the only other witness, so what happened was basically Ethan's word against mine. He initially wanted to blame me, but I had an alibi. So Ethan had to change his story, saying he had been mistaken. The police were suspicious of his conflicting accounts. But since he was Cody's only relative, he had no motive to harm him. The investigation would have to wait until Cody woke up. Ethan was allowed to return home. By now, he knew his chances of getting my college spot were gone. He couldn't accept defeat like this. He had to grab onto something. Cody, after being reborn, had told him that Rachel would later rise to a high rank and live a life of success. In that case, he had to hold onto Rachel for dear life. He couldn't lose. He had to win. A week later, Rachel returned from her mission. She parked her car at the door and hurried inside. As she walked, she called out Leo's name. Leo! Leo, I'm back. Leo didn't answer. Rachel rushed upstairs. The lights were on, so someone was definitely home. She thought Leo was upstairs, but as she rounded the staircase and reached the second floor, a disheveled Ethan rushed out from a room and grabbed her. Before Rachel could react, several other people burst into the house. She and Ethan had been caught in the act. Surrounded by so many people while being held by a half-dressed Ethan, Rachel was completely stunned. She frantically looked around for Leo. Leo, where's Leo? Leo, come out. Ethan told her coldly, don't bother yelling. Leo went to college. He's been gone for days. What? Why did he leave? Wasn't he going to marry me? We even filed the application. Rachel didn't believe it. She wanted to find Leo. She had just returned from a successful mission and was about to be promoted to colonel. Ethan, along with his aunt, uncle, and a host of other relatives, all threatened Rachel, demanding that she marry Ethan, or they would report her for immoral conduct. Rachel didn't want her career to end like this. She remembered that in her previous life, she had been incredibly successful. She wasn't willing to let it all end here. For the sake of her future, Rachel had no other choice. She chose to swallow her pride and marry Ethan. Their wedding was rushed. The very next day, they filed the paperwork and became a family. Rachel was filled with resentment. She had never wanted to marry Ethan. In her last life, her husband had always been Leo. Why had it become Ethan this time? She couldn't understand. Rachel had never intended to marry Ethan. She helped the brothers because Ethan's older brother had once helped her. She owed him a favor. In her last life, she had heard from Ethan that after his brother died, they had a miserable life, treated so badly by their aunt and uncle that it was worse than death. So when she was reborn, she wanted to rescue Ethan from that hellhole as soon as possible. Rachel remembered clearly that in her previous life, helping Ethan had gone off without a hitch. The Leo of her past life had been madly in love with her, giving up college for her sake. She, in turn, had given Leo's college spot to Ethan. After graduating, Ethan was assigned to her military unit as her assistant. He took care of her meticulously, and they got along very well. That's why, when she was reborn, her first thought was to save Ethan, to give him a better life sooner. Why did her good intentions turn into a disaster? Why was everything so different from her last life? She had assumed this life would follow the same path, but she never expected things to go so wrong. Leo had left her, and Ethan, the sweet, understanding man who had cared for her so deeply in her past life, had become a different person. He had become so disgusting, so opportunistic, so repulsive. I got away from all those rotten people and went to college in DC. When I left, I took my official residency papers with me. Although Mr. and Mrs. Vance said they were my family and would always be my support, I knew I could only rely on myself. I didn't want any more contact with anyone related to Rachel. During my time in college, I never wrote or called them. They wrote to me, but I never read their letters or replied. For years went by quickly. I immersed myself in the ocean of knowledge, learning theories and subjects I had never encountered in my previous life. After graduation, I applied to work in the country's most challenging regions, wanting to serve my nation. Time really does fly. In a flash, 10 years had passed. Hard work always pays off. I returned with honor and hope. After the award ceremony, I ran into Mrs. Vance. I hadn't seen her in 10 years. She had aged a lot. She was retired now and was attending the ceremony as a veteran cadre. She held my hand, her voice filled with excitement. "Leo, I never imagined you'd achieve so much. I am so proud of you." I was also happy to see her and asked about Mr. Vance's health. Mrs. Vance sighed. "Your Uncle Vance is paralyzed." "How did that happen?" "It's a long story." Mrs. Vance then told me what had happened. From her story, I learned about things I had never bothered to follow. I had always assumed that after getting together, Rachel and Ethan would become as successful as they were in my previous life. I never thought it would turn out so differently. Rachel and Ethan got married as planned, burdened with a partially paralyzed Cody. Cody had a volatile temper and would often throw fits and break things at home. Mr. and Mrs. Vance were very unhappy with the marriage, but there was nothing they could do. After all, Ethan held Rachel's past over her head, threatening her with it whenever he wanted something. Rachel lost her spirit and made a major mistake at work. She received a formal demerit from the military. Her promotion to colonel was rescinded, and with a demerit on her record, her chances of advancement were gone. She had no choice but to take an early discharge. Her civilian career was fraught with obstacles. Her mood soured, and she fought with Ethan constantly. Mr. Vance, who already disliked Ethan, decided to go over and try to mediate after hearing about their fights. But instead, he overheard Cody and Ethan arguing. Cody was accusing Ethan of pushing him down the stairs, causing the fall that left him paralyzed and unable to ever stand again. Mr. Vance was furious when he learned the truth and was about to go to the police, but Ethan discovered him. In a fit of madness, Ethan tried to kill Mr. Vance. He pushed him down the stairs, severely injuring him. Ethan thought he was dead, but Mr. Vance clung to life, and eventually, the truth about what Ethan had done came out. The police arrested Ethan, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. And from then on, Rachel fell even further into despair. She lived each day in pain and self-reproach. Hearing Mrs. Vance's story, I felt a great deal of sympathy for Mr. Vance. In my last life, he had lived a happy and comfortable life. I never thought this life would end so tragically for him. As for Rachel, I never felt a shred of pity for her. She brought it all on herself. They say you reap what you sow. The fact that Rachel couldn't continue her climb to success and Ethan couldn't live a life of ease shows that it's better to be a decent person. After all, if you do bad things, you will eventually be punished. So it's better to be kind.